Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Let's Talk Motivational Podcast. If you're new here, my name is Aisha, aka Esha Melanin, and this is a space where we talk about growth, life, faith, and healing. And sometimes we make deep conversations and think about deep things. So this season, we're doing things a little bit differently. We're talking about deep conversations. We're still having reflection and we're still learning, but we are allowing more room for real dialogue, real conversations between different people and having different perspectives and having an honest, inspired conversations and moments. And today, just like any other episode, we are having one of those moments because recently I had a conversation with a friend and he said something that stuck with me. He told me that you have a very good upbringing despite your exposure. And honestly, that sentence made me stop and think for a moment because why do people often assume that exposure, like traveling, education, modern environments, interacting with different cultures, automatically means that someone becomes less grounded in their faith or values? Why do people treat exposure and faith like they cannot coexist and live together harmoniously? That's the deep conversation we're having today. The topic for today's conversation is, can exposure and faith actually coexist together? And to explore this properly, I have invited the person whose comment actually inspired this entire reflection to join me here today. This person is someone who has a diploma in health information management, computer science, and dietetics, someone with a bachelor's degree in public health, and is currently ongoing his master's program in public health, all the way from India. Please help me in welcoming my dearest friend, Yusuf Abubakar Musa. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Aisha, aka Aisha Melanin. It's indeed a very inspiring moment to be here with you, and at this very moment, despite my tight schedule, I decided to spare some moment because you're someone of importance to me, and I cannot say actually no to you. Thank you for this wonderful introduction.
Let's talk and talk with Esha Melanin. I say let's talk and talk on Esha Melanin YouTube podcast. You wanna learn something, let's talk. You wanna get something, let's talk.
Thank you so much
you
for
wanna say something, let's talk.
Despite being busy and despite your tight schedule, you still give us your time, and I really appreciate that. So I want to start from the very beginning. Do you remember what you said to me? You said to me that I had a good upbringing despite my exposure. Well, I really want to know and understand what you meant by that and what was your perspective at that particular moment.
You know, living in an experience and living outside an experience tend to actually shape the way you think. Back then, whenever the society I am, whenever they see a lady, particularly, we can put it in general, but it's more applied to ladies when they leave their comfort zone and to abroad, more of European societies or countries. They tend to misuse that very opportunity they had back in home to keep up with their culture, their religion, or the ethics they have learned, and adopt the Western method of living, eating, drinking, responding to parents, which I see a total opposite of that in you. At first, after had, you went to America and thereabout, I was like, oh, she might not even talk to people there. And after having a conversation with you, I come to learn you're totally a different person. We chit chat. I say, you give me a number. We started talking. That's when I get to know that you're really a person that actually made us look or think twice before we talk. Because back then, we would just see the book. We just, this book is not good. But by seeing you, I now begin to actually look deep into the book to actually know what the book contains. And this is where we are now. I'm even experiencing that same exposure, which I can share with you. I have a friend here. You can see India is not even Europe. It's an Asian country. But you'll be surprised. The guy doesn't pray. He doesn't pray. To that, I can't attest that since I'm now 6 months in India, but I cannot say that guy prayed for up to 10 or 15 times.
Wow.
He doesn't normally comes, and whenever you try to talk to him, he tell he's living his life. It is not Nigeria. He'll just live it. We talk to him, and so you see why I'm telling you that living in the shoe and living outside the shoe is two different things. And even the
Yeah.
first thing, yeah, he might actually do the first thing, but there are people are talking about a lot of. So had it been in Nigeria back home with his parents,
Yeah.
he could have actually did the first thing. So you can see why a lot of misunderstanding, misconception
Yeah.
of the term of the ideology itself actually come
Yeah.
into. And I say, well, I see you differently. You don't dress that exposed. You always seem to cover yourself. Well, this is
I try.
actually, you deserve a salute. Yeah, kind of. And thanks to your mama for giving you this upbringing. I'm really proud of her.
Yeah. Shout out to my mom. She's actually the best.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
that's whatever you said right now is really interesting to me because I think that what happens is that many people hold that belief that a person cannot be modest and cannot stand within our culture if that person has become exposed, mostly because of examples that they have seen from other people. Just one bad
Yeah,
seed can spoil the whole thing. And that's just, I think, where people are coming from. There's this idea that once someone becomes exposed to the world, that like if they have different lifestyles, they see new ideas, they see new cultures, they automatically will drift away from their religious values. That's what people automatically think about because that's what they have been seeing so far from so many people. And I can attest to that. I've seen
reality.
so many people, like even when I went to the States, I've seen people who actually, because I remember one time me and my mom, because we're always praying on time as soon as it's time to pray, because unlike in Nigeria, you have over there you have to know that it's time for prayer from your phone, because you won't hear the azan out loud,
Yeah,
right? So every time the phone actually the azan on the phone rings, we go and we pray. So this person was our friend, right? She came whenever she came over, she saw us doing that. She this is what she said to us specifically. She said that this, I don't know, I want to translate it because she said it in Hausa, but I don't know if I translate it correctly, but she said that this this salah da kuke ta yi, this prayer that you keep on doing, you are going to stop doing that eventually. And then we looked at her like, I don't understand. Ba kun zo turai ba? That's what she said. So meaning
right.
that now that we are there, we are supposed to stop focusing on our religion. And those are the kind of people, are the ones that actually make people think that people cannot have faith and be exposed at the same time, especially women. And you see, that person that I'm talking about is a woman herself. So I was really shocked. I was really shocked when she said that. And I was like, how can you say, because I'm in a different country, I'm in a different environment, I will no longer do what I usually do back home? That doesn't make sense. That just makes me look like I'm someone who has a double life, someone who doesn't even know what she's doing, because I can't act a certain way home and then act a certain way here. And then she laughed, and I guess she doesn't pray all the
And,
time.
and one
That's why.
and one funny thing you'll be surprised is they tend to block
Mm.
their families from the view.
They
They block
do.
them.
They do. They actually do. They
Exactly.
do. They do. They do.
Well,
They do.
listen,
And it's
if you
and
don't fear
it
God, who do you fear?
is exactly, exactly. And it's because of people like them that people actually assume that, especially for women, that if she is educated, then she must be less religious. If she is modern, then she must be less modest. And if she's exposed, then she must definitely have changed her values in some way or the other, which is totally wrong from my own eyes, because for me, that's not the case at all. I haven't gone farther
I
away from
attest
my
to
religion.
that.
Instead, I actually got closer to my religion because of that, because I saw how people were, and it just made me think, oh, Allah has blessed me with so many things. It actually increased me in my iman instead of taking me farther away from it. Because when you see
I can
different ways
attest to
of
that.
lives, you don't just inherit beliefs anymore. You actually choose them. It now becomes a choice. Before, it's what you inherited from your family, but now it is actually in your hands to choose whether to continue with that heritage or to drop it away. And many people decide to just leave it, and that's just the problem. So I'm really curious to know what you personally think that the word exposure or having exposure means.
Well, exposure, it can
Mm-hmm.
have many meanings, and
Yeah.
it can have a single meaning, depending
Mm-hmm.
with the definition you take. When we say
Okay.
exposure, it actually means being introduced into a different environment, culture, ideas, lifestyle beyond what we are raised with. It is not just about travel or social media. It is about seeing how other people think, live, which can expand your perspective. Then,
Yeah.
if you really know what you're doing, exposure should actually make you thank God more because you're exposed into an environment where you don't know anything about that environment, but now
Mm-hmm.
you are there in that environment, seeing things
Exactly.
where faith actually do work. Because you have to
Mm.
tell yourself, why am I doing this? Am I doing it for the sake of people? Or am I
Mm.
going to do this for the sake of the Creator, the
Mm.
one that spared my life to actually be here? This is
Yeah.
what we tend to fail to understand. We allow our intention or emotions to overrule, to drive us into a day that is full with broken battles, a
Mm.
day that will actually strangle us, make us suffer from despair, hypoxia, and many other factors. But
Mm.
when
Yeah.
exposure is taken as a positive input or as a positive indicator, you will actually tend to change yourself to the better person you are because okay, now you do things when nobody tells you don't do it.
Mm.
You do things when you feel let me just do this or don't do that. Nobody stops you. That's when you actually know how faithful you are to your Lord. Are
Exactly.
you doing things because you don't want your mama to say no or your papa or your father to say no? Or are you
Mm-hmm.
doing things for God's sake?
Well, like you said, to add on what you said, for me, what I believe is that exposure is not rebellion. Actually, exposure is actually awareness. It's something that shows you different options, but it doesn't necessarily force any kind of decisions that you are gonna make. And sometimes seeing the world actually strengthens you, and it strengthens your understanding of who you actually are and what you want to stand for. And sometimes seeing the world actually strengthens your understanding of who you are and what you want to stand for. Faith becomes less more about tradition and more about conviction because that's all that matters at the end. Because at the end, in the end, how strong your iman actually is what is actually important. Because that's all that matters at the end. How strong your iman actually is at the end. Also, there's something powerful about choosing faith consciously. You know, when you grow up with religion as part of your environment, it's different. But when life actually exposes you to different realities, you begin to ask the right questions. And instead of weakening your beliefs, these questions can actually deepen that faith, that iman, because now you understand why you believe and not just what you believe. Because there's a difference between knowing what you believe and actually knowing or understanding why you believe in that thing. But exposure actually, for me, from my experience, exposure actually made me understood what it meant, what I actually was believing in, and why I was actually believing in what I believe in. And I think that many women feel this pressure quietly. You know, you're expected to be educated, but not too independent. You're expected to be modern, but not too modern. You're expected to be confident, but still fitting into a certain expectation. And sometimes people forget that faith is internal before it actually is external. Someone's exposure doesn't necessarily automatically measure up to their iman. That's what people keep forgetting because only Allah truly knows what's in someone's heart. And something important we often forget is that Islam itself encourages people to seek knowledge, learning, traveling, understanding the world. These things were actually never meant to distance us from our faith. Never. That was never the case. In fact, understanding the world can actually make you appreciate guidance even much more. Now, what people don't actually understand about exposure is that it can actually test someone's faith. That's the thing. That's the misconception that people don't get. It actually, instead of changing your faith, it actually tests it. It actually examines how strong your iman is, meaning it doesn't cause you to lose your iman, but actually tests how strong it actually is. That is true. Not everyone responds the same way, right? Everyone has different ways of responding to certain situations. But maybe exposure didn't create a weakness, but it actually revealed your actual foundation. Maybe that exposure did not create the new version of you, but actually showed a real version of you that you were hiding deep down. Because a lot of people hide behind your community. What happens now when you take away that community? When there's no judging eyes, you now succumb to the situation, right? And then you fall into the category that everyone is describing, right? And if your iman was never strong enough, you are bound to lose it easily with the littlest of exposure. And now that is a fact. It shows you what was truly understood versus what was only followed, if that makes sense. You know, for me personally, exposure didn't take me away from my faith. Not at all. It actually made me realize that faith is not something fragile that disappears when you see the world. It's something that is strong enough to guide you through the whole entire world. Now, the thing is, maybe the real actual question isn't whether exposure and faith can coexist. No. Maybe the real question is whether we trust faith enough to exist beyond comfort zones. Because you can be educated and even grounded, and you can be modern and yet still modest, and you can experience the world and still know exactly where your values stand. Because exposure doesn't have to mean that you are losing yourself. Sometimes it helps you to find yourself even more clearly. With that being said, what advice would you actually give young people today who actually feel the pressure to choose between being modern and being too religious? Let me know down in the comment section. Alright, thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of the Let's Talk Motivational Podcast with me, your host, Esha Melanin, and for being part of this historical conversation. And today, everyone listening out there, I would love to hear your thoughts on this issue. Do you think that exposure actually strengthens your faith, challenges it, or does it do both? Until next time, take care of yourself, stay grounded, keep growing, and I'll see you in the next episode of the Let's Talk Motivational Podcast, which comes out next Tuesday. Until then, it's been yours truly, Esha Melanin, and don't forget to subscribe, like, share. Bye.
I say let's talk and talk on Esha Melanin YouTube podcast. You wanna learn something, let's talk. You wanna get something, let's talk. You wanna say something, let's talk. You wanna be someone, let's talk.